So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Here back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Wednesday, August 25th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and a good rest of their day. Yesterday, it is in fact Wednesday, August 25th here today. Coming off of another New York Yankee win last night. Yankees get the job done, 5-4. It was close, but hey, as I always say, a win is a win, and us as Yankee fans should be used to this at this point. I mean, it's no surprise when we get into these moments, because we've had a lot of these this season. These close games, you go into the ninth with a lead, you allow a run or two. We've had some really bad losses where we blow the lead. So we've had a lot of these games this season, and every time you have one of these games, it's like, oh gosh, here we go again. But last night, that wasn't the case. We got the job done. Wandy Peralta has just been, something else. And, when we got him, I didn't even really never heard of the guy. We traded him for Mike Talkman. It was one of those moves where it was like kind of just on a side move, like, oh, we'll give you this guy and you give us this guy, kind of just like a cash dump, something like that. And he's been arguably one of our better relievers the past 2-3 weeks, really ever since, this team started to really heat up. He's been not just a big part, but he's been a huge part of this 11-game win streak. And you saw it again last night, coming in, bases loaded, 2 outs. He fell behind Freddie Freeman 3-1 in the count, then threw a strike. Freeman fouled, 3, 4, 5 balls off, and then flew out to Joey Gallo in left field. So it was a close game. It was definitely a nail-biter, but we got the job done. Chapman continues to struggle. I don't get what people don't understand. He's having a down year. It is what it is. He's having a down year. He's not the same pitcher we saw earlier in the season, and I don't know why he's relying so much on his slider. It makes zero sense to me. His fastball is his best pitch. He throws that thing up in the zone. 101 up in the zone is one of the hardest pitches. I think the best pitch in baseball. Not curveball, not slider, not knuckleball, or knuckle curve, or, sweeping, whatever. Sinker, cutter, nothing that. The best pitch in baseball is a well-executed fastball up in the zone. I've always said it, and I will always say that until you prove me otherwise. Until I see otherwise. Like I said, last night, too many sliders. He wasn't finding command of it. He didn't barely throw the fastball. We didn't even barely see the fastball last night from Aroldis Chapman. So, definitely interesting pitch selection. But the Yankees get the job done. 5-4. Hey, 11-game win streak. And we've won 10 straight series. And I believe this is the first time we've done it since 1954. So, if you're a Yankee fan today, you got to be feeling pretty good. And on the other side of New York, if you are a Met fan today, well, same old. As the New York Mets fall yet again to the San Francisco Giants. They lose last night. I believe it was 8-0. They got smoked. Francisco Lindor, Javier Baez, their returns. This is great. They did nothing. As a matter of fact, if you watch Javier Baez, one of his swings, he swung at a ball that was not even close. Not even remotely close. And, it was probably a good, this he missed the ball this much. He swung, balls coming in. He was done his swing, and the ball just crossed the plate. So he had a really bad swing. The Mets are the same old Mets. They continue to lose, and they're now 2-9 through this 13-game stretch. They've got 2 more games against San Francisco tonight and tomorrow. So we'll see if they can get the job done. But they continue to struggle. So on the one side of town, Yankees get their 10th straight series win. First time since 1954. They did that. So pretty crazy. Yankees are really going into history books. They now have won 11 straight games. And I think you can officially call us a serious threat. And now we head into Oakland, which on paper seems like a really difficult series, which it is. But Oakland's been struggling. They've been, losing. They just got done really, losing badly to the Mariners. So there's a good chance that the New York Yankees might be able to go into Oakland and catch them sleeping. We'll see. I'm not saying to us to go in there and sweep them, but definitely a good opportunity to gain some ground on Oakland as well. So Yankees day off today. They will head to Oakland. They'll play tomorrow. Start a 4-game set Thursday through Sunday. Mets play today. Second game of the 3-game set against San Francisco. And then, nothing really else going on. Preseason football starts up again on Friday. Week 3 of the preseason starts on Friday. You got 4 games on Friday, and then you got a ton of other games on Saturday, and couple games on Sunday. There's about 6 games, looks like, on Sunday. About 5 games on Sunday, and a couple games on Friday, and then the rest of the league on Saturday. So, a lot to get to here. All right, so let's get to the topics for today's podcast. As I kind of just mentioned, preseason football, I've got 2 football topics today, 2 pretty big football topics today to talk about. Number 1, I wanted to get into the Panthers extending Robby Anderson to a 2-year, $29.5 million contract. And, yes, you have heard that right. The former Jet receiver is now locked up in Carolina for another 2 seasons as the Carolina Panthers and Robby Anderson come to an agreement on a deal. This was rumored for a little bit now, coming to an agreement on a deal with, Darnold being there and, Robby Anderson having a really solid year last season and really, him and Darnold obviously already played together. There was already a lot of rumors about this move, but now it's official. Now it's really, pen to paper. Robby Anderson is going to agree to a 2-year, $29.5 million contract. So I think this is a solid move for the Rams. Panthers, I think there's a couple reasons why. I'll get to all those. Darnold and him, with the connecting already in New York, then going over to Carolina. There's a lot of, positives in this move, and it's kind of a low-risk move because you only sign him to a 2-year deal. It's not like you're invested in him for another 6 years. It's a 2-year deal. If it doesn't work out, well, 2 years from now, he's done. It's not like this is a big 7-8 year deal worth, $200 million. It's a good, solid contract for a good, solid receiver, if you kind of get what I'm saying. So we'll get to that. Then we'll get the Travis Etienne injury. Etienne, I think one of the best running backs in the NFL draft, maybe only outside of Travis Etienne, maybe outside of Najee Harris. And I even said, too, on draft day, I said I think Etienne's the better option over Najee Harris. That was just me, though. But Travis Etienne's done for the season. So the Jaguars, who continue to struggle in preseason and don't look good, their offensive line looks awful, their secondary looks terrible, their defense doesn't really have anyone. Right now, they look really lost. And I know it's only preseason, but there should be a lot of concerns in Jacksonville. And put that on top of the fact that Travis Etienne is done for the year. He's got an injury to his foot. He's got to get surgery, so he's done for the season. And his rookie year's done. So it stinks. It's terrible to see. And especially if you're a Jaguar fan, this ain't good. Because you got Etienne to pair up with Trevor Lawrence. And now Etienne's gone. So now James Robinson's going to be the true number 1. His stock goes way up. And, it's a big loss for the Jaguars. And the Jaguars' offense, if you look at it, in the situation they're in, it ain't great. I'll get to that in the Jaguars. And then we'll finish off the podcast with the New York sports update, as always. Yankees, day off. Mets play today. I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of these 2-game series. I just don't like them. I'm enjoying the 11-game win streak. It's great, but I don't like the 2-game series. It's something about it. I just don't like. It's just weird. Why can't you play 3 games? Come on. You can't set up a 3-game set against them. I'm not a big fan of the 2-game series. I'm just not. I'm really not. It's like you got to travel, from one destination to the next for just 2 games, for literally, one night there, and then you play a game and you're done. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think it's either completely remove them, the NL, AL stuff, or make it 3 games. One or the other. Don't make it 2 games. I don't know why. I'm just not a big fan. Because it's just Wednesday is a very rare off day in the MLB. Thursday and Monday are the most common off days. Monday, travel day, coming off of the weekend. Wednesday, usually not, because usually Wednesday is either the final day of the set, of a 3-game set that starts on Monday, or the second game of a 3-game setter that starts on Tuesday. So Wednesday's a very rare day off, which is weird because it's got to mess up the players because you play 2 games. The Yankees went from having all these games to now having a day off on Sunday because of the rain. Then Monday, Tuesday they played, and now they got a day off today. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of these 2-game sets. And I understand it's an off day and you get to travel and all that stuff, but today would have been a day game anyway because they would have had to get to Oakland. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of 2-game sets. I'll tell you that for sure. I like the 3-game, 4 games my favorite. I think 4 games are fun, especially when they go Thursday, especially when they're a pivotal series like Oakland. You get to see some really good baseball for 4 days. That's pretty cool. But anyway, that's all. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So report Robby Anderson, Panthers agree on 2-year, $29.5 million contract extension. Yes, you have heard that right. The Carolina Panthers have officially agreed to an extension with Robby Anderson. And like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago when I was telling you about this topic, I kind of said that this has been in the works for a little bit now. It's kind of something that, the Panthers have kind of been working on a little bit, with Robby Anderson, and Robby Anderson's been trying to get a deal done along with the Panthers, and both sides, I think, clearly you could tell that they wanted to come to an agreement. Not only just the Panthers side and their organization, but Robby Anderson and his side of the ball as well. So it is pretty cool to see an agreement get done here, because this has been something that's been in the works. Anderson has said it, Panthers have said it, and we always see times where players say they want to stay someplace, and the organization says they want them, but they won't sign them. And then it's like kind of this and that, and then it happens throughout the season. This seemed like it was good. It was a done deal from the start. We heard about it. It was rumored. There was rumors. There was this and that, and then we got a deal done. Robby Anderson's extended for the Carolina Panthers for 2 years. And like I said, this is actually a pretty big year for the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers this season, there's a lot of optimism surrounding the team, especially the offensive side of the ball. And I think a big part of that is you get Sam Darnold. They made the trade in the offseason, obviously we all know, from the New York Jets. So you get Darnold. And it's you hope that Darnold can revamp his career. Was not in a good situation with the Jets and never really got any help, and, was not in a good system and never got the full opportunity to just showcase his skills. Now in Atlanta, new system, new coach, new organization, change of scenery. It has a lot of a Ryan Tannehill effect on it, where Tannehill went from Miami, he was injured, but never really did anything there. He wasn't living up to potential, went to Tennessee, and now you consider him a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of Tannehill in this situation in Carolina, which is great, because that's a positive. We see what the Titans can do, and it's almost very similar, because the Titans' defense isn't great. Their offense is very good. Panthers, same way. Defense isn't great, but their offense is very solid. And you add Darnold, you have a Robby Anderson already, and I think there's also just an extra added excitement around this team, with DJ Moore, and you got, Christian McCaffrey. He only played 3 games last season. You got to hope that he stays healthy. I really feel like if you look at this Carolina Panthers offense, and I know up against some of the better ones in the league, sure, they don't have a DeAndre Hopkins, they don't have a Devontae Adams or a Stephon Diggs or a Travis Kelce or some big Tyreek Hill, some big playmaker at the receiving core. They got Robby Anderson, they got DJ Moore. They don't have that big-time playmaker. Now, they do have it at running back. I believe they've got the best running back in the league. And that's why I feel like it makes this offense exciting, because this offense has a lot of potential to be something really solid. With it being DJ Moore, Anderson, CMC, there's a lot of really, really solid pieces. And I know a lot of people are, want to say, oh, well, who's their number one? They don't really have many good receivers and this and that. But it's they actually have a lot of solid weapons. Sure, they don't have Devontae Adams, they don't have Hopkins, they don't have Diggs, but they've got a lot of solid assets that collectively can do just as much damage. And that's kind of what you're getting here in Robby Anderson. And we all know how the whole Robby Anderson Jets thing kind of ended. It was, it wasn't ugly. It wasn't bad, but I think there was deep down inside, I think Anderson wanted to change the scenery. And I think deep down inside the Jets, not that they didn't want Anderson on the team, but I don't think they wanted to give him a ton of money. And when he was a free agent and the Jets were kind of holding back, they weren't really going out and giving him a ton of money. I think that kind of spoke volumes that not that the Jets weren't interested, but they just weren't. They just didn't feel like it was necessary. And let's be honest here, okay? I think I have no issue with Robby Anderson. What I do think when he was with the Jets, though, I do really feel like he was a little overrated by Jets fans. I do feel like he was a little bit overhyped. I do. I strongly believe that. And you could disagree. You could say I'm wrong. You could say this is all false. But deep down inside, I do have this feeling that I think he was a little overhyped with the Jets. He never put up big-time numbers with the Jets. He had one really good season where he got into the 900-yard category and a couple really nice catches and some touchdowns. But other than that, he sat 500, 600. He was never he made some really nice catches, but he was never consistent. And he never fit in the Jets scheme. Because Adam Gase, when he was the coach, he never aired the ball out. He wouldn't throw it deep. He wouldn't. He was an awful coach. He was a terrible scheme. It was awful. It was terrible. He never threw the ball deep. Robby Anderson's a deep ball receiver. He never really got the full opportunity. So when the Jets didn't re-sign Anderson, in a way I was kind of like, okay, yeah, it makes sense because the Jets didn't use Anderson to the best of his ability. They didn't. He didn't fit the scheme. He's a deep ball receiver. Jets wouldn't throw the ball deep. But in Carolina, they throw the ball deep. DJ Moore, last season they had Curtis Samuel. They do throw the ball a lot and deep. And he fits that scheme. And that's why last season he had his first 1,000-yard season of his career. And we talk about this all the time, scheme fits. Anderson wasn't that with the Jets. He wasn't a scheme fit. He would run deep all the time. He'll catch a couple passes here and there. But other than that, wouldn't get the job done. And because he didn't get the ball enough. When you give him the ball, when you give him the opportunity to go one-on-one, he's a solid receiver. Is he up there with Adams, Hill, Diggs, all those guys? No, that's not fair. But is he like a Sutton? Is he up there with the Suttons of the world? Maybe the Marvin Jones Jr.'s of the world? Sure, he's up there with some of those solid backs. Curtis Samuel, he's a solid receiver. He's not a top 5 receiver. He's not a major threat. But he is a threat. I would say he's about a top 5 receiver. He's not a top 5 receiver. I would say he's a top 15, 20 receiver maybe. And he's a solid asset. And it's a good deal. Because like I said, him and Darnold already have chemistry. They worked together in New York. Now, like I said, it didn't really work. There was a lot of bad things. There wasn't a lot of good things that happened. There just wasn't. That whole Jets team just never worked. And that's okay. But what I will tell you is this. It's big when a receiver and quarterback have already thrown to each other. I've always said this. A rookie quarterback coming on, throwing to new receivers, is just like a 10-year vet at quarterback throwing to a new receiver. You got to build chemistry. You got to learn their speed. You got to learn their cuts. You got to learn their timing, where they like the ball. Can they catch it in double coverage or not? Deep ball, where? Do you trust them in certain situations? It's big. Quarterbacks to receivers is a very difficult thing to build chemistry. That's why a lot of times we see miscommunications. Because maybe the quarterback thinks he'll be there 2 seconds earlier, and maybe he's not. And maybe the quarterback already made up his mind. And that's what we've seen. Nothing against the Giants. I'm not trying to start a Giants, tangent here. But what I am saying is that's what we've seen so far at training camp a little bit with Daniel Jones and Galladay. They've struggled a little bit hooking up. They've made some timing mistakes, just those things. But that's going to happen. So it's big when you get a quarterback and receiver that already know each other and already have thrown to each other and already have been in game scenarios. And they did just that. I mean, I believe one of Darnold's first touchdowns was to Robby Anderson. So I think Robby Anderson's definitely a solid receiver. I think he's definitely a difference. He's definitely in a much different state of mind now. He's a much different type receiver. And I mean that in the best way possible, meaning like he just didn't work in New York, and that's fine. He didn't work with the Jets. He didn't work with us. He just didn't. It didn't work out. I know a lot of Jet fans really liked him, but look at the numbers, look at the time, look at his impact. He made an impact here and there, but it wasn't consistent enough. Now in Carolina, with the offense they run, the routes that they have running, you could actually see his full potential. And like I said, he's not a top 5 receiver in the league. He's a solid receiver. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Jones Jr., Curtis Samuel. He's up there with those guys. Solid asset to an offense that has some solid. He's like a DJ Moore. Now, I don't know who's going to be the number one there. If it's going to be Anderson, if it's going to be Moore, or it's kind of going to be Anderson and Moore. They're going to kind of split the load. But you do got CMC in the backfield as well again. And he can receive a lot, but they're definitely going to run. So you might see a little bit of a drop-off, maybe like a tad in Anderson's, catches and stuff, just because CMC is going to be back there. Last season, they relied heavy on the throwing game, because CMC played 3 games, and they didn't really have much of a running game, so they relied a lot to throw the ball. So that's why Anderson got a lot of targets. But hey, I find it pretty crazy. The Jets and the Panthers have done a lot of things over the years, like just recently. So the Jets went out and signed Greg Van Roten last offseason. He's played 1 year with the Jets. And he was on the Panthers. We got him from the Panthers. Darnold got traded. Then Robby Anderson signed in free agency to the Panthers. And then now Darnold got traded to the Panthers. So the Jets signed someone from the Panthers. Then they lost someone in free agency to the Panthers. Then the Jets traded someone to the Panthers. So the past 2 seasons, two off seasons, there's been a lot of connections with the Jets and the Panthers. Greg Van Roten comes over. Darnold and Anderson go over to the Carolina. Seems to be happening a lot. It's definitely interesting. It's you see this sometimes with teams where they not Greg Van Roten's not a move that the Carolina Panthers made. He was a free agent. Jets signed him. Same thing with Anderson. But it's just like they're swapping players. Like Jets signed Anderson. That same Jets signed Greg Van Roten. That same offseason, Anderson goes to Carolina. Then shortly, just this offseason, you trade Darnold to Carolina. So it's definitely interesting. But hey, Darnold's there now. Anderson. You look at that core for Carolina. It's a solid core. And like I said, I've said a lot. I'm gonna repeat myself here a little bit. This isn't a top 5 offense. This isn't an electric offense, but it's a solid offense. You look at this offense with the Panthers, and you look at this and you say there's some guys on this offense that could do damage. We know Robby Anderson's capable. He's made some really nice catches and really nice plays over his short career here. We know Darnold's shown flashes. It's a matter of can Darnold fully live up to the expectations and potential that we all gave him. He's shown flashes. He hasn't done it consistently. And I've said this for a while now, ever since the Jets traded Darnold. I think that was a great win-win trade. The Jets got what they needed. That was a new quarterback, a new face in Zach Wilson, and who we obviously drafted. We didn't get him from the Panthers. We drafted him. And the Panthers got what they need. A new quarterback, and Darnold got what he needed. It was a win and a win. Jets got what they needed, a new face, a new quarterback, and Darnold got a change of scenery. So I do think Darnold's play is definitely going to be up this year. It's like a Ryan Tannehill vibes. This situation gives me a lot of the Ryan Tannehill vibes. Goes from a team with no assets, didn't help him out, to now a team that, hey, he's got a receiver that he's already played with. He's got the best running back in the NFL. He's got another solid receiver in DJ Moore. He's got a solid offense. He's under a very talented offensive coordinator and offensive system. This Carolina Panthers offense, watch out, it's looking up. Defense is the only issue. But that's going to happen. Their defense is young. That's going to build over time. All right, so let's get to this article here. So, report Robby Anderson, Panthers agree on 2-year, $29.5 million contract extension. It's another thing. This is a low-risk move. I mean, if it doesn't work out, it's not like you invested in him for 6 more years here. It's a low-risk move. Low risk, high reward. Your high reward, you get a really good receiver. That's your high reward. And your risk is it doesn't work out. Well, we didn't throw the bank at this guy, Robby Anderson has earned a new contract with the Carolina Panthers worth $29.5 million over 2 years per NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Rappaport noted the deal gives Anderson more guaranteed money and will keep him with the Panthers through the 2023 season. Joseph Person of The Athletic first reported the two sides were deep in talks on a multi-year deal before the start of the season. Anderson initially signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with Carolina in 2020 and easily exceeded expectations. He finished the year with 95 catches for 1,096 receiving yards, both career highs, while adding 3 touchdowns. He had a very good year last year. I'm not taking that away from him, which is why it's good. Change of scenery for him as well was solid. The 28-year-old had been known as a deep threat during his 4 years with the New York Jets, but he finished 10th in the NFL in receptions with the Panthers while catching a personal best 69.9% of his targets. Like I said, deep threat. Didn't fit the Jets system. With the Panthers, they've transformed him a little bit, gets more catches, and they do throw the ball deep a lot more. All right, so the receiver began his professional career as an undrafted free agent in 2016, appearing in all 16 games as a rookie while starting 8. He broke out in 2017 with 941 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns while often showcasing his big play ability. Anderson averaged 14.8 yards per catch during his 4 years in New York, although consistency was an issue. The move to Carolina allowed the 6'3 wideout to reach his potential after reuniting with Matt Rule, his college coach at Temple. With Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and rookie second-round pick Terrace Marshall Jr. also on the roster, the Panthers have an exciting collection of weapons. It could set up the offense for success with Sam Darnold taking over at quarterback as he reunites with Anderson after the two played together in New York. So, like I said, consistency. I said that about 5 minutes ago. Consistency was his issue with the Jets. He would make some really good plays, But not that he would make good plays and really bad plays. He would make some really good plays, but other than that, he wasn't getting targeted. Because really, they just ran him on a bunch of vertical routes every time. He didn't really get across the field much. And I can recall that one play against the Dallas Cowboys. It was week 4. I think it was after Darnold returned from mono. It was back in 2019. We're talking Anderson's final season with the Jets. Because then last season he played with the Panthers, as we all know. I can recall that game. That game we ended up winning against the Cowboys, which at the moment seemed like this big thing. Turns out, Jets still had a bad year. But at the moment, like when we beat the Cowboys, it was like, wow. Like we just beat the Cowboys. And it was like, Cowboys were, talented roster. And, we went into the game heavy underdogs and all that stuff. And I can recall this one play where he ran like across the middle. It was about probably 20 yards. Caught the ball. And he took it to the house for a touchdown. Probably like a 70, 80-yard touchdown. I don't know exactly. But the Jets were back a little bit. And he caught it. He made a great play. That was kind of what he's doing now in Carolina. He's not just throwing deep anymore. He gets across the middle, jukes a couple guys out, makes a 9-yard catch turn into a 15-yard catch. And that's what I wanted to see more of when he was with the Jets, but we didn't see that because Goofy Eyes didn't implement into the playbook. But he did have one really good season with the Jets. He had a breakout year. But other than that, he's been average with the Jets. And last season, he really broke out. And change of scenery, scheme fit, really is big. I mean, he was 10th in the league in receptions. He didn't get many touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns. And he was 15th in the league in yards, 1,096. 11.5 was his average. He's 28 years old, so he's still got a lot more time left. But, yeah, I mean, you look at his career, 4,155 receiving yards. I mean, you look at this. Look at the numbers here. So, his highest in targets in a season from the Jets was 114. That was in 2017 when he had his biggest year. He had 941 yards and 7 touchdowns. Okay, that was his biggest season. Look at last year's. He had more catches. He had more targets, more yards, less average per play, less touchdowns. But it just goes to show you how much more he's being utilized in Carolina. More targets, more catches, more yards. Jets, his most catches in a season was 100. Targets in a season was 114. Last season, 136. So, just goes to show you how much more he's getting utilized there. And if you look at his game log, you could really tell. So we're going to go week by week here. 8 targets, 10 targets, 5 targets, 11 targets, 12 targets, 5 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 13, 6, 9, 7, 12, 5, 10, 7. A lot more. Let's just go to 2019, for example. This was with the Jets in 2019. 7, 6, 5, 3, 8, 8, 6, 4, 3, 3, 5, 10, 11, 6, 4, 7. So you could tell there's a big difference. Let's just go to 2018. 1, 5, 4, 6, 5, 5, 10, 7, 5, 7, 7, 11, 13, 8. A lot of big difference. You go to 2017 and it's bigger because he utilized a lot more in 2017. When he had 12, 10, 12, 10, 12 again. He had a lot. So last season, you could just tell. Looking at the game logs, he had so much more targets and so much more opportunities and so much more catches. Let's look at 2020 catches. 6, 9, 5, 8, 8, 4, 6, 5, 9, 4, 7, 4, 8, 2, 7, 3. That got him top 10 in the league. Let's look at 2019. 3, 4, 3, 1, 5, 1, 4, 2, 1, 1, 4, 7, 7, 4, 2, 3. It really is wild how much he changed as a receiver, a playmaker, and a pass catcher just by going over to Carolina and just by being in a new system. And people don't realize the impact a new system, a new coach, a change of scenery can make, not only on a player, but even that team. I mean, he had some big catches last season that really helped them. And you go into this season with Darnold being your quarterback. They've already played together. Last season, he had Teddy Bridgewater in there. I mean, last season was kind of interesting. I think you're getting an up with Darnold. There's definitely a lot of optimism here. And in his career, he's had 302 receptions, 518 targets, 4,155 yards, 13.8 was his average, 23 touchdowns, 92 is his longest, 168 first downs, 13 So it looks these are all of his other numbers here. He's gotten some jet sweeps before, which they implemented a little bit last season. It really is. I mean, you look at, you look at his first season, and you could say it's been up. First season with the Jets, 78 targets. Second season, 114. Then 94, then 96. Then last season, 136. So it's here, then it's here, then it's here, then it's kind of here, and then it's up there. So, it's a move. And, for a guy that's reuniting with Darnold, I know a lot of people might want to say, well, what about the touchdowns? Or what about this? And what about that? Well, it's kind of unfair because throughout his career, he's never really been a big touchdown guy. He's not going to put up 13 touchdowns in a season. He's got 23 in his career, which is 5 seasons. So, and he's 28 as well. So, 2 years, be 2023, about 30, 31. By the end of this deal, he'll be in his 30s. And if he's still performing high level, then you can give him another deal. Low risk move. You're not investing a ton in him. You're not going out there and saying you got to give us top 10 receiving numbers for 10 years. They're asking for him to be a solid asset, reunite him with his former quarterback in Darnold, and hey, the Panthers offense has got something going over there. And I'm not saying it's going to be something electric and be great, but it's definitely you got to watch out for under the radar offense and team as a whole. That's what I got for Robby Anderson and the Carolina Panthers. All right, so coming up next here, a little bit of a less positive segment, as the Jacksonville Jaguars, we all know, have struggled so far in preseason. And you can only take so much from preseason because, let's be honest here, you can only take so much from preseason. Let's be honest here. It's preseason. You're going up against some backups. If you're doing great, everyone's going to hype you up. If you're not doing great, they're all going to say, oh, well, it's preseason, he's still warming up. So, preseason's a little tough to gauge. But the Jacksonville Jaguars have not looked good. Their offensive line has not looked good. Their offense as a whole has not looked good. Their defense has not looked good. Their coaching has not looked good. They've not looked good at all. And they've gotten a big blow with this news yesterday. Travis Etienne placed on season-ending IR with a foot injury. Their draft pick, second pick in the first round, their running back, pairing him up with Lawrence, is now done for the season. I'll get to that, how it impacts the Jaguars, and where do the Jaguars go from here. We'll get to that coming up next. All right, so welcome back here. Jaguars Travis Etienne Jr. placed on season-ending IR with foot injury. So, okay, this is terrible news for the Jaguars. I was actually really excited to see what him and Lawrence can do, and then you also add James Robinson into the backfield, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones Jr., you got a lot of good DJ Chark over there. There's a lot of actually good assets with the Jaguars on their offense. They haven't lived up to it so far in preseason, but like I said, it's preseason. And I've always said this about preseason. You can only take so much from preseason. Like if a team goes 2-0, like the New York Jets, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the Jets are going 17-0 this season and winning a Super Bowl. Right? Or I'm not going to say, oh, the Jets are going to win the AFCs just because they won 2 preseason games. I know a lot of people are big believers that preseason's huge and it's a big teller. I've always lived by this. When the Browns were terrible and awful, they would win about 2-3 preseason games every year, go to the regular season, look what happened. So, you can only take so much from preseason. I do believe rookies, quarterbacks, new players on new teams, new quarterback and receivers, I do believe there's a lot to take there, and I do believe that those players should be playing in preseason. I know everyone has their preseason opinions, and we shouldn't play this guy and play this guy, and I've always said, I think I'm perfectly fine if you remove the preseason. Instead of playing 3 games that mean absolutely nothing and the high chance of injury, especially as a Jet fan, we've already had a couple really bad injuries this season with Carl Lawson and Jared Davis now going down until our bye week. So there is a lot of things. But the Jaguars so far, and we all know, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, and you're bringing Etienne, and the tank job that they had last season, going 1-15 rather, and hiring a new coach, Urban Meyer, that kind of college type style offense. Urban Meyer returning back to Florida. It's like his redemption tour. And there's a lot of excitement, I believe, around the Jaguars. There's always a lot of excitement around every NFL team when there's a new quarterback, a new guy in town. And we're talking about Trevor Lawrence being arguably one of the best prospects we've ever seen ever come out of college. A lot of people compare him to Andrew Luck coming out of college. I could even make the argument that he's better, just his pure skill and his pure ability to throw the ball and deliver strikes and throw it deep and thread the needle throws. He's an all around great quarterback, and make no mistake, I think he'll have a very solid season. But there is reason to be concerned with this Jacksonville Jaguars team. And now with Travis Etienne going down, it's like, oh no, what's next? Now, you do have James Robinson as your running back, which I said going into this year, I heard that Urban Meyer was going to use Etienne more as a receiving back and more of as a wide receiver and use James Robinson for the running and actually being a running back, which is perfectly fine with me. Etienne was like that in college. He ran, but he also received a lot. And I think it was a good move. Now, of course, like when the move went down to get him and draft him, I think a lot of it had to do with Lawrence. I think a lot of it had to do with Lawrence playing with him in college at Clemson and both them having success there. It's not like they just played there. They both had success. Almost like the Sam Darnold, Robby Anderson thing. They both played in New York. Now, they didn't have much success, but they still played together. They know each other. They know how their games are. They can chem well together. And that's the same thing here with Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. And now with Etienne going down, it's like, oh no, we drafted Etienne just for Lawrence. They didn't need a running back. You got James Robinson, who had the best season, arguably, we've seen in recent memory for an undrafted rookie. He went undrafted, and he had over 1,000 yards last season, and he was just dominant. And, you look at that, and you're like, wow, he was really good. So, they didn't really need Travis Etienne. They didn't. They didn't need Travis Etienne. They wanted him, and it's a want. It wasn't a need. They went out and got him. And I like Etienne a lot. I like Lawrence. I like Etienne. I like both of them. I think they're both going to have good careers. But, like I mentioned, I think with Etienne here, it's like, oh no, this is a draft pick now that you're like, we didn't need it. Would have it been better to go out and get an offensive lineman, trade up and get a cornerback? Now with the whole C.J. Henderson situation, it's like the Jaguars, in a way, have done things a little bit backwards. And it's the Jaguars' control that he's got injured. If the Jets would have known Carl Lawson would have torn his Achilles, I don't think they would have signed him. It's out of your control. An NFL team can't control injuries or not. Now, sure, you can control what you do with those injured players. If there's a guy that's been injured 3 straight seasons, you decide to give him a big-time contract, well, that's probably a mistake. But, Travis Etienne really has never had any injury history. It just so happened a freak accident. It stinks. He's foot injury, and he's done for the season. You can't do anything about that. That's sports. That's football. That's how it is. So, but now you look at it, and you're like, Etienne's done, so that's a threat taken away from your offense. And it's like you just drafted him just for Lawrence, and now you look back on it, you're like, well, we could have took an offensive lineman. We could have took a corner. Because you look at this Jaguars team, and they are not playing well in the preseason. They are not. And I've said this from the start. When Urban Meyer got hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars, I said I did not think that was a good move. I just don't think that Urban Meyer could do that. We've always seen this. When a head coach goes from college to NFL, it very rarely works. NFL to college, you do well. Nick Saban didn't succeed in the NFL. That's when I think, you could be a great college coach, be terrible in the NFL. Chip Kelly. Can't believe I'm using him as an example. But he had a successful season. He has a couple successful seasons with Oregon. Went to the NFL, arguably the worst coach in the NFL. And, now with Urban Meyer as well. He had success, Florida, definitely Ohio State. Had a lot of success there. Goes to NFL. Well, it's preseason, but early signs are, is this really going to happen? Are they really going to be able to win games under this guy? And that's a serious, serious issue. Is we're sitting here today, and there's a lot of questions around this team. And there are a lot of questions around the coaching staff. And can they go from being college to NFL and having success in the NFL? And can they develop Lawrence in the right way? A lot of questions. And I don't think we got answers yet. And maybe we'll get answers. But right now, I've said it since the start. I just think this Jaguars team is in a very weird spot. Urban Meyer's head coach. You got assets, but it's like, okay, We got assets, but it's like, all right, offensive line's still not very good. Defense isn't very good. It's like, okay, let's see here. This Jaguars team just looks like it's just missing pieces. They put the puzzle together wrong. And if we're sitting here, week 10, I'm sitting here, and if I'm telling you that the Jaguars are going to go win the Super Bowl, I'm wrong. But for the time being, the Jaguars team looks a little disgruntled. And now with Etienne going down, it's a big loss. Now you look back on it, and you say, oh, well, could we have drafted an offensive lineman? Could we have done something else with that pick? The Jaguars need to fix things. There's no argument to be made that their offensive line is an issue. It's an issue. It's a big issue. Say all you want about running back and Lawrence and their receivers. I said the same thing about the Bengals. Say all you want about the Bengals having Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase and all those guys on their offense. And Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow coming back from a torn. Say all you want. They don't have an offensive line. Same thing here with Jaguars. Say all you want about Lawrence and Robinson and, we got Chenault and he's going to have a big year. He showed flashes last season. And Marvin Jones Jr., who was the number one last year in Detroit. And DJ Chark, who's been with the team for... You could have all these threats. If you don't got an offensive line that can protect you, that's not going to happen. And we saw that against New Orleans in the preseason game. Receivers trying to get open. Lawrence having to escape out of the pocket and throw the ball away. We saw it a lot. We also saw a lot of rushed throws by Lawrence due to being under pressure, getting the ball and having a defensive end coming right his way right away. So there's issues with this Jaguars team. And it's terrible that he has to go down. And like I said, I like him a lot. I've always liked Etienne. I've always thought he was a really good football. I've always thought he was a really good player and all that stuff. But, it's like, there's definitely, an issue now with him being gone. Because you drafted him for, let's be honest here. If you ask the Jaguars front office why they drafted Etienne, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they drafted him because they genuinely wanted him. They drafted him because of Lawrence. And that's not a bad thing. I said it with Anderson and Darnold on the topic just now. And anytime you can get a quarterback, running back, receiver kind of combo, that's always great. It's good, especially when they play together in college and they've known each other for a while now. That's great. But was it their biggest need? Not really. They've got James Robinson. And not that I'm saying James Robinson is going to turn into this great back. He could have had one great year and could be average the rest of his season. But you got to feel optimistic. He had a great season last year, James Robinson. I think that Jaguars kind of messed up here. They should have went out and got an offensive lineman or a secondary guy or a quarterback. They should have went out and got someone like that. Not a running back in which that's not their biggest need. And I know you were going to use him at receiver, but is receiver your biggest need? Not really. Chenault Jones Jr., you went out and got Marvin Jones Jr. in the offseason. It's like, I don't understand what the Jaguars and Urban Meyer are trying to do and trying to succeed. How are they going to do this? There's so many questions. I don't know how they're going to do it. And, I was watching that game the other night, or I saw highlights of it, and man, did Lawrence, not that he looked shaky, but man, did he, was there definitely there was definitely moments there where he had to get out of the pocket, he forced some throws, and that's because of the offensive line, and they didn't really do much to fix it. So, you look at their defense as well. They've got two solid guys. Miles Jack is good, not great. And he's had some really good moments. Nothing crazy, though. And Josh Allen's had some really good moments as well, the edge. Miles Jack, like I said, he's good, not great. He's solid, but, he's not up there with the edge rushers of the world. Like, he's not up there with the linebackers, or even just any defensive player like a Bosa or a Donald. He's not up there. He's average. I don't know if it's enough to carry this defense. He is a veteran. He's been in the league for a little bit now, but still. I don't know if it's enough to carry this defense. Either way, though, this defense looks really and tanking all through last season. Not starting this guy and playing this guy instead. And it seems like the Jaguars still have an issue on their hands. Because now Etienne goes down and, well, you don't got an offensive line. You don't got a great defense. There's differences between short rebuilds and long rebuilds. This has the making of being a relatively long rebuild. Short rebuilds are like rebuilds that take a year or two and then you're back. Long rebuilds, well, those are rebuilds that could take a long time and you might never really get it right until really down the road. This has the making of being a long rebuild. They still need a lot of pieces on they're missing a lot of pieces on defense, a lot of pieces on the offensive line. We'll see if James Robinson can have another solid year. Lawrence into the receivers first time, that's going to be interesting. You look at the secondary, the defensive line, the pass rush. They don't really, they lost Calais Campbell. Like, they don't really have that stud player on the defense. There's so many missing pieces with this team. And Urban Meyer's their head coach, coming over from college. Look at the history of coaches from college to the NFL. It ain't great. It really isn't great. I talked about it. A lot of guys come over from college and think they can do it. Some people are just better at coaching in college than they are the NFL. It's a completely different game. I've always said that. It's a completely different ballgame. And, I believe... Yeah, so Jimmy Johnson is actually one of the only coaches, the old Cowboys coach, one of the only coaches ever that was able to go from college to NFL. He was college coach for assistant, defensive line, assistant head coach, defense coordinator. He was the head coach for Oklahoma State from 79 to 83. Then Miami from 84 to 88, had success. And then he was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys from 89 to 93, and the head coach of the Miami Dolphins from 96 to 99. And he's a head coach, and he's a two-time Super Bowl champion, AP NFL Coach of the Year in 1990, and that's kind of it. So he won 2 Super Bowls. So he's like the only coach that was good in college and even better in the NFL. His NFL win-loss record was 80-64. I'm not trying to compare Urban Meyer to Jimmy Johnson, because Jimmy Johnson one of the all-time greats, but it just goes to show you, out of all the coaches that have tried to go from college to the NFL, 95% of the time it hasn't worked. Jimmy Johnson, one of the only times it's worked. I don't see this team anytime soon get into the playoffs, or this team doesn't. They didn't do a good enough job. They didn't. This offseason they didn't. And you gotta be patient, right? They haven't even played a game yet. They could be the star-studded team. But look at the roster. Look at the assets. Like, it's just not. It's like there's a lot of missing pieces, and the pieces they have in place, too, aren't stable. So, we'll see. But Jaguars Travis Etienne Jr. placed on season-ending IR with foot injury. Jacksonville Jaguars running back Travis Etienne Jr. was placed on season-ending injury reserved with a foot injury on Tuesday. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the rookie running back will undergo surgery to repair a mid-foot sprain. Having already selected Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick, and the Jaguars reunited Etienne with Clemson teammate when they took him 25th overall in the 2021 NFL Draft. The 5'10 running back had a prolific college career, rushing for 4,952 yards and 70 touchdowns while catching 102 passes for 1,155 yards and 8 scores. He was also the ACC Player of the Year in 2018 and 2019. Etienne encountered a setback Monday during a preseason game when he suffered a midfoot sprain in Jacksonville's third 23-21 loss to the New Orleans Saints. The Jaguars obviously had big plans for Etienne right out of the gate because spending a first-rounder on a running back is no longer the norm. Not to mention the team already has James Robinson, a 1,000-yard rusher in 2020, on the roster. With Etienne out of action, Robinson figures to take on the role of a featured back. He will. That's why I don't fully understand, there's another thing, too. There's a miscommunication from the Jaguars to the media, and now I'm not going to criticize them for that. But it's like Urban Meyer saying, we're going to use him more as a receiver, and then you got people saying, what are you going to do with James Robinson? Like I said, I'm a Jet fan. I'm not trying to sit here and say my team's this sparkling team that's going to go out and win 15 games this year. But if I had to say, I think the Jets have done a relatively better job than the Jaguars building around their guy. That's just me. They drafted a receiver because they needed one. They drafted a running back because they needed one. They didn't need a running back. You have James Robinson. Now if James Robinson has another big year, well, what? Now what? You can't all of a sudden say next year, Etienne, come in, just take his spot. If James Robinson has another 1,000-yard season, you can't sit here and tell me that you're going to put Etienne as the starter next season. So now there's a lot of questions, and we'll get answers, but a lot of questions, a lot of missing pieces. This Jaguars team just seems like there's just missing parts. That's really it. That's it. But Travis Etienne done for the year, and that's terrible. See, I was excited to see what he could do, but I was confused when they drafted him at first. I know he was with Lawrence, but still a little confused. So either way, we'll see what the Jaguars do. Prove me wrong. Go out there and win 10 games this season. But right now, Urban Meyer, college to NFL, just doesn't seem to work, and it hasn't really worked much. So we'll see. All right, so let's get to the New York sports update and wrap up this podcast here. As for yesterday in the MLB, the Dodgers won, Brewers won, Cheaters won, Red Sox won, Tigers won, Angels won, Nationals won, Rangers won, White Sox won, Rays won, Pirates won, Mariners won. Mets lost yesterday 8-0. They moved to 61 and 64 in the season. I mean, this is awful. I mean, it's so bad. It is so bad over there. It really is. Lindor coming back in his return goes 0 for 4. Baez goes 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Baez, since being on the Mets, is batting 190. 190, people. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, it's awful. It's like watching that terrible product has got to be terrible. I'm glad I'm not a Met fan. I'm glad. I know earlier in the season the Yankees were going through this, but it wasn't this bad. The Yankees weren't going through 2-10. I mean, maybe they were, but 2-9 through this 13-game stretch now. They're going to find a way to win the next 2 days? Really? Jeez. And another terrible team, too. Angels beat the Orioles last night 14-8. So the Orioles are now on a 19-game losing streak. I mean, it's getting to the point. It's getting to the point with the Orioles where it's like you got to feel bad for them. Like, it's getting to the point where you got to feel bad for them. You got to. And I understand they put up a fight last night. They scored 8 runs, but you got to feel bad for them. I mean, they don't got pitching. They don't have pitching. They don't have anything. You got to feel bad for them. You really do. Okay, I'm going to read you the ERAs, a pitcher that pitches yesterday for the Orioles. Watkins started 7.07 ERA. Wade pitched 11.42 ERA. Abad pitched 9 ERA. Diplin pitched, never heard of the guy, 0.73 ERA, so he might be actually solid. And Paul Fry pitched 5.36 ERA. So look at the guys' ERAs, and they're awful. They're awful. So yeah, it's pretty bad. And the Angels did their job. You even look at the Angels' ERAs, and better than the Orioles, I guess. Yankees also won yesterday, 5-4. We moved to 74 and 52 on the season. 11-game win streak. Look at the 11 games in a row. I've always said this. It doesn't matter. I've always said this. Win's a win, a loss is a loss. There's no, it's a win, but we almost blew it. No. A win is a win, and a loss is a loss. Did we get the win? In the column today. You look at this. It says winning streak of 11. Does it say winning streak of 11 with, we almost blew the game? No. It doesn't say, Chapman stinks. No. It says a winning streak of 11. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how you get them. They don't ask how. They just ask how many. I will always say that. Plus 2.5 still in the wild card. A's are now 2 back in the wild card. And the Mariners are 3. So the Mariners right now, 7-3 in their last 10 and a 3-game win streak, are 3 back, and the A's are 4-game losing streak, 2-8 in their last 10. So the Yankees are getting a cold A's team, which is really a big opportunity. And as for today, we got the Tigers, Cardinals. I'll give Cardinals the win. Cheaters, Royals, give Cheaters the win. Cubs, Rockies, I think they'll split. You got a doubleheader. Angels, Orioles, give Angels the win. Pirates, Diamondbacks, give Diamondbacks the win. Actually, let's see here. Yeah, Diamondbacks to win. Phillies, Rays, I'll give Phillies to win. Wheeler's on the mound. Blue Jays, White Sox, I'll give White Sox to win. Nationals, Marlins, give Nationals to win. Let's see here. Indians, Rangers, give Indians to win. Twins, Red Sox, give Red Sox to win. Brewers, Reds, give Brewers to win. And Dodgers, Padres, give Dodgers to win. Mets also play today. Mets come in this game 61-64. And Giants come in this game 81-44. This game goes on today, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on LB Network. You can also find it on SNY. Giants got Johnny Cueto on the mound. He's 7-6 with 3.89 ERA. And the Mets got Taijuan Walker on the mound. He's 7-8 with a 3.86 ERA. The over-under for this game is set at 8.5 right now. And 80% of people think the Giants win. I was predicting 70-something. Give me the Giants, man. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Mets are going to win. They're awful. They're terrible. I mean, your big $300 million man comes back last night. And it's the first game off the DL. So if you want to lay him a little bit of slack, you can. Because, even if it's, even if he was having a great season, first game off the IL, you haven't played in, a month or two, you're going to be a little rusty. But he's been rusty all season. He's been terrible all year. He's batting .225. For a guy that's a career, .280, .290 hitter, he's batting .225. I mean, that's terrible. And I'll tell you what. I know it's the first. I know this is it, but I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about the contract anymore. You gave him such a big deal. What if he's like this for the rest of his career? You gave him a massive 12-year deal for the $500 billion, and what if he's like this? I mean, it's definitely there's that thought in your mind, you're always hindsight's always 20/20. So technically, if the Mets knew he was going to bat .225, number one, they wouldn't have traded for him. Number two, they wouldn't have even signed him to an extension. Number three, they probably wouldn't have made the trade in general because Carrasco has been on the IL most of the season. He's barely played. So they probably wouldn't have made the trade anyway if they knew it was going to work out like this. But, there was rumors that they were just going to wait, and maybe they should have just waited. I thought it was a good deal when they traded him. He was one of the best shortstops in the game recently. This season, that's a different story. Defensively, he's been good. Hitting's been awful. He's a career .280 hitter. He's batting .225. His worst season was batting .258. That was last year in the weird 60-game season. This season, he's batting .225. So, it's pretty bad. It's really bad. It's a guy who's a career .280 hitter, and he's batting .225. So, Lindor's got to step up. And you get it. He returns last night, and the energy, and you're like, oh, we're coming back home, and they lay a dud. They do, and that's not good. That is not good. And Baez too. The Mets gotta know what they were getting in Baez. I like Baez a lot. I think he's a good player when he's healthy, and when he's out there, he's fun to watch. He plays the game with a lot of energy and passion. I've always said that. But man, he strikes out a lot. He does, and you can't take that away from him. But when he's healthy and when he's going out there and hitting, he's one of the best players and one of the best shortstops, second baseman, whatever you want to say in the game. But he's very talented. But what is he swinging at? That ball was out here and he was swinging. Mets are a disaster. They are. It's great. It's great. I love when the Mets lose. Because Met fans earlier in the season, when the Yankees were doing terrible, they were all like, oh, Yankees stink. And now the Yankees are on an 11-game win streak and the Mets are 3 games below 500 and their star shortstop's coming back and he went 0 for 4. And they lost 8-0, by the way. Laughing stock right now. They are a terrible, terrible team right now. And if this keeps up, changes are going to have to be made. Luis Rojas, his job anyway, was on the line this season, because he's not Steve Cohen's manager. That was Wilpon. So his job anyway was on the line. Now it's Steve Cohen. If they miss the playoffs this year, I think 99% chance Luis Rojas is out of there. And I'm not blaming on Rojas. I'm just saying in general, changes are going to be made in the offseason if they don't make the playoffs. Even if they do and they lose, let's say they make the playoffs and they lose first round. Let's say they get swept. I don't know. Or, they lose the NLDS, 3-1. They come out, whatever. Luis Rojas, I think, unless if they would to win the World Series, I think Luis Rojas' job's automatically on the line. Not saying that Steve Cohen does like him, but you got to have that feeling that Steve Cohen's going to want to bring in his own guy, his own manager. Every GM does that. Joe Douglas did it. He fired Gaze, he brought in his guy in Sala. Right? Every guy does it. If you want your own manager, if you're eyeing a guy, you will you have the power to fire, you will. And if they continue to play like this, forget about it. Ross is going to be fired. Changes are going to be made. And for all this hype up going into the season, it's been awful. It's been terrible. It's been a big disappointment. And I think we could always agree. Mets, I said this when they were doing well. They just do enough to keep their head above water. They always do. Last season, they did it as well. Every year, they always seem to do just enough to keep their head above water. They never fall below 10 games below 500. They never lose, they never find a way to lose, 10 of their next 50. They always try to, then late in the season, they always stink. Like last year, it's the same thing every year. The Mets take a dump every season at the same exact time. It's this July, August, September mark where all these other teams are starting to heat up and the Mets slow down. That's what happens. All right, now let's get to fantasy baseball. All right, so the Yankees right now, or not the Yankees, I'm winning right now 75-64. Today I've got going Will Smith, Whit Merrifield, Gene Segura, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Jake Cronenworth, Christian Yelich, Austin Meadows, Manuel Margot, Avisail Garcia, Odubel Herrera, and Yadier Molina. And I got no pitchers going right now. I'm still trying to decide. Dylan Carlson, by the way, the Cardinals activated Carlson wrist from the 10-day injured list Tuesday. He's batting third and playing right field against the Tigers. So good update on him. I have to activate him. And there's also an update on Bregman. Manager Dusty Baker said Bregman hamstring will be activated from the 10-day injured list for Wednesday's game against the Royals. Danielle Lerner of the Houston Chronicle reports. So I'm getting healthy here with the team here. I don't know what I'm going to do just yet. I'm thinking of a couple different things. I think I might drop Franmil Reyes for maybe Bregman, and then maybe drop Odubel Herrera for Dylan Carlson. Something like that. We'll see. And then we got an update on Chris Bassett, a very good update. Bassett underwent successful surgery Tuesday to repair displaced and fractured bones on the right side of his face. So, great news there. Scary incident there in that game. Great to see that he's doing good. So I actually should activate Carlson right now. I should probably drop Odubel Herrera. I don't know. I'm going to drop Odubel Herrera. So manage IL. Activate. I should probably just activate not Dylan Carlson. I should probably just activate Bregman anyway because they're going to be back tomorrow. So I should probably just activate him anyway and just get it done with. So I activated. So now lineup change. Odubel Herrera is dropped. Dylan Carlson is in. So, all right, it's officially on the waiver report, and that's official. All right, so I might as well just add, or I might as well just what's it called? Might as well activate Bregman as well because tomorrow he'll be back. So it doesn't make any difference. And Franmil Reyes, I was going to bench anyway today. I'll probably drop Franmil Reyes. I haven't played him much. He's so hit or miss. He's very inconsistent. He has moments. His batting average was all the way up in the 270s, 280s. Now he's 243, I believe. So he's all the way down there. He's just not having a good year, and that's okay. No, you can't bat 500 every season. But that'll do it for the podcast today. Another good podcast in the books. A lot of football today. So tomorrow, I don't know what exactly I'm going to probably talk about tomorrow. I do want to get to a lot of just some other football stuff as the season creeps closer. And on Thursday, not this Thursday, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we got an NFL game. 2 weeks tomorrow, there's an NFL game. So, that's exciting. But yeah, that'll do it. As always, hope you all enjoyed it. It was another good podcast in the books. And as always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.